So last year I made a limited run of wax pots that I sold in my shop, and they were really successful. I sold every single one. People seem to really like them. So I'm really excited to this time around bring a new series of wax pots, this time in a couple of different kinds of woods and also a slightly different design. So let me share what I have this time around. What is a wax pot first of all? How am I making them? All of that. Let's get into it. I really like kind of old-fashioned techniques and concepts and all of that. And in the olden days, if you were a woodworker, chances are you had a grease pot. So what's a grease pot? Well, it's basically like a little wooden box that you had like next to your bench or in your apron or, you know, somewhere nearby that was filled with either tallow or beeswax polish or something like that that you use to lubricate your tools like your saw, or that you use to finish wood with. And it makes sense, right? I mean, you wouldn't have found like a plastic jar with like a polyurethane finish at that point in time. But this is not a new concept. This has been around for a long time. And when I first heard of this, I was kind of intrigued because I was thinking, okay, wow, this kind of fits me in the sense that these are like combines two of my favorite things: perfectly made little wooden boxes and wax polish. Because I make and sell wax polish, that I've done that for years. Ship them all over the world, and it's kind of a nice little part of our business, making these handcrafted wax polish and packaging them up and everything. But I was thinking, okay, wax polish, wooden box, that's ideal. Like, I want to be able to get into that. So first of all, what I did was to just kind of carve some pots by hand, just kind of get a feel for it, and I just really loved them. They were like, had such a great feel to them. And normally, you know, I keep wax polish in a metal tin. I'm very practical, but they're not wood, right? They're not like tactile wooden boxes that have like a great sound when you open it and all of that. And that's what these, you know, carved wax pots had. So I was thinking, okay, let me think now, how can we make this on a little bit larger scale, other than me sitting there whittling away, you know, which takes forever. Let me offer these as a product, a limited run, and let's make them on the CNC machine. So first of all, I needed to decide on a design. Like, I like the idea of a thicker box that wood was kind of, you know, wood was carved into, where you didn't build the sides, you know, from pieces, but like that you carved out of. I kind of like the idea of that. And then of course we need a lid. Because, you know, you have wax inside, you obviously need to cap it with something. Now, I didn't want any additional metal hardware, like I didn't want any hinges, any clasps, anything like that. There's something kind of appealing about having everything that you need, like from the design itself. So this is kind of the design that I settled on, where it's carved out, and then there's like a little protruding top here on the base piece, and that kind of fits into the lid, which is the same size as this in terms of area, just thinner, and this kind of just slides onto here. Now, I like the CNC machine, I mean, first of all, because it is very efficient, but also because you could do this with any wood. You could do this with a rather hard wood that would be tricky to do by hand. Like any tropical wood that would be hard to make by hand would be, you know, an ideal candidate for this. So here is the first test I did. This is oak. This is actually pieces glued together. This is white oak, has a really great feel. I needed a piece of wood that was a little bit thicker, so first glued up some flooring because I have a lot of white oak flooring. It's kind of my go-to material whenever I need to do trials. One of the trickiest things when it comes to cutting, especially small things on the CNC, I think, is securing it down. Sometimes you can clamp right on top, at other times you need to have access to the whole top section. So you need to find a way to clamp something together by holding it like through the sides. Now, normally when it comes to securing small one-off pieces on the CNC for cutting, I tend to use blue tape and CA glue with an activator. This works really well. Basically what you do is you put tape on the board here, and you put tape here. Then you put a little activator on one side and spray a little bit on the other, put them together, and it sticks really well. This is expensive. You go through a lot of this stuff. The other thing is this is really time consuming. Now this system here that I designed here, I can change out the pieces like about 5 seconds, a couple seconds. It's really fast. So this is much more efficient. So what have we created here? Well, this is a jig. A jig is always the answer to precision, right? So let's take a look at this jig. This here is an MDF board, and as you can see, it has various indentions cut out for different projects. I've used this one for a bunch of different things. So as long as you secure this in the right place and the machine knows where this is, it will know exactly where these spots are as well, because I've set them in the program. So here I have a brand new box. I cut this project in 2 separate sections. I have this thin block of wood, and then I have this thicker block of wood. So first up we have the box itself. So it fits in here. Since I'm cutting over the whole thing, I need access to the entire top. What I decided to do here was to first kind of wedge this in place. And I found that instead of drilling this one in, it works a lot better if you just do it by the clamp here. Okay, so you'd think that this is a really good tight fit, right? Turns out when the bit, let's say this is the bit, when the bit comes in and it comes in at an angle and it comes in with quite a lot of force, it actually is enough force for it to So to solve that problem, I have added 2 wedges on either side. So now this is really secured in place, and most importantly, you can cut all through. Keeping it really securely in place from all directions works really well. So that is for the box part. Now, what about doing the lid? So the lid here uses the same hole, so go here, and as you can see, I don't need access to the whole top here. I only need to be able to cut on the inside. So for this situation, I've kind of made these little clamps. So this is just some thin scrap plywood pieces. Now this little clamping situation really does a good job of providing a lot of pressure down, which is always the ideal thing when you have both, pressure from the sides and downwards. So this is really secured in place here. The one thing that has kind of changed over, from last year is that I've refined the program a little bit, because initially it required a lot of handwork, a lot of chisel work after it came off the CNC. At this point it still requires a little bit, but not as much as it did then. And the thing is, you want that precise fit, right? You don't want a loose fit, or obviously not too tight a fit. You want like a perfect fit so that the wax is protected, there's no air coming in. Now the thing when you have a blank like this, the lid, you have a perfect canvas for something, right? And last year, where's that one? Here is the one I keep in this shop. That's the thing about these, I kind of keep these all over the place, I have these, because I use wax polish everywhere. But this is the design I did last year, and I carved this out on the CNC, and that's fine. The thing about carving stuff on the CNC is that you can only do relatively large carvings. If you try to do too fine, the wood fibers is just gonna break on you, even if you use a tiny bit. And if you use a tiny, tiny bit, chances are you're gonna break the bit, which I've broken a fair amount of bits. So anyway, the design has to be kind of large. This is kind of cool, but I was thinking this time around, it would be kind of cool to use the laser engraver. So a while ago, we got a new laser engraver, but only recently has it really become useful, because we've kind of built this whole system. So now we can either use it outside or we can use it inside, because there is a smoke ventilation enclosure system. So suddenly the laser engraver became really practical. And one of the reasons for that, proven to be a very kind of interesting addition to the shop. I like it for two reasons. Well, they're kind of the same, but I like it from the point of view of joinery, that you can cut out really, really fine, tiny pieces, which would be really annoying to cut on the CNC. And you can engrave really, really detailed, fine. This is wax pot, and it says Darbin Orvar. Darbin Orvar is tiny, and wax pot has like an interesting font, and there's a space inside. Anyway, when I realized that I could carve, you know, stuff like that, I can engrave stuff like that, I was really kind of happy about that. And so I built a system, not unlike the system that is on the CNC, you know, it's like a jig to keep things in, right? That's always the thing when I cut this out on the CNC, I cut out one at a time, because that's the way I have it set up. I mean, obviously you could maybe create like a system where you had multiple things cut, you know, if you created a jig for that, but I haven't. Anyway, I was thinking for the laser engraver, I could maybe engrave several lids at the same time. So I kind of created a system, because that's the thing, right? The software needs to know where the pieces are. So carved out this little system using the laser engraver in order so that I could put multiple lids on and then carve them all out at the same time. So that was kind of a nice concept. Then we have a little bit of kind of chisel work to kind of smooth the edges out a little bit, chamfer them a little bit so no corners are super rough or hard or anything like that. Now, in terms of what's inside here, right? So we have wax polish inside here, right? But I make 3 different kinds of wax polish. So this is the same as last year, because I think that is the most versatile one. And it's the mineral oil polish. So I make tung oil, linseed, and mineral oil. Tung oil and linseed are great, I use them all the time. However, they cure a little bit harder, and they're not ideal for metal. Whereas mineral oil polish, you can use on wood, you can also use it on metal, you can use it on leather. It's very versatile. So it's a great one to keep in the shop, like to lubricate your plain bottom, that kind of thing. So it's great for tools to prevent rust, but also to glide. And it's also great for kitchen related stuff, because it's a food grade oil, so you can use it on cutting boards and spoons and things like that for the kitchen, as well as just whatever other project. It's very versatile, which is why I decided to go with it. Now, the size is a bit on the smaller side, I mean this whole pot, and that was the idea right off the bat. I think primarily the reason I wanted it so small is because it's like a personal item. It's something that you keep with you in your apron or on your workbench, and the idea is that you use it and then you refill it. So when you buy one of these, if you decide to buy one of these, you get a tin as well, filled with mineral oil wax. So you use this up, and then you can refill it with more wax polish, you know, when you run out. The other thing I kind of like this smaller size for is sometimes when you finish stuff, you get like sawdust or stuff comes into your, you know, finish. So it's nicer not to have a huge like container for the wax if it gets dirty. That way you know, you're working with small amounts at a time. I just think it keeps things a little bit cleaner, a little bit neater. Plus, I like this concept that you refill it. You use it up, you refill it. It's kind of a tactile thing. It's meant to kind of be used and touched and moved around and kind of kept with you. When I look at these though, I love the kind of the smallness of them and the lid and everything about them. Anyway, I'm very excited about them. Let me show you what kind of woods I have this time around. I actually have more than these made, but here we have a little bit selection of the different kinds of woods. So, first of all, we have maple. This is the kind that I used last time, and it's probably my favorite, just because it is such a nice and solid and practical wood, and it looks great. It is really hard. This time we also have cedar. So, much lighter, like it is just like cedar is such a light wood, but I thought it would be kind of interesting to offer. And it just like has a different feel, a different smell. It's of course is a lighter wood. Let's see, we have, this one is a mahogany. So this is, you see that like more richer, darker color. And you can really kind of see it because of the grain looks quite different. So Then we have cherry. Cherry sometimes is very similar looking to the maple once it's finished. Of course, cherry kind of darkens over time too and gets that kind of darker finish as it sits in the sun. Then I also have this guy right here. I have a couple of this one. This is greenheart. Now for this one I actually did a glue up because I didn't have thick enough pieces. But greenheart is a tropical wood. A viewer sent me this wood all the way from Ireland, and it is very super dense. It just like has a very kind of different kind of feel and just like the oiliness of this wood, like a tropical wood. Anyway, I have selected a few of this one, because I thought it would be kind of fun to offer a tropical, like a different kind of wood as well. So this is a unique one for sure. So anyway, I'm kind of excited to have a new batch of freshly made wax pots available for purchase if you'd like one in your shop. This is one of those things, they're gonna fall, I better start in another one. This is one of those things, like objects that I think it just kind of adds to the quality of the environment that you spend time in. I mean, there's no reason in some ways to have your wax polish in a beautiful box as opposed to a metal tin. But there's something about it when you open one of these up, when you are working on it and you keep it next to you. I think it's not unlike other things. I mean, I personally have a special kind of coffee system that I use when I make pour over coffee. Or I use Blackwing pencils when I write because I think they have such a great feel. Or I have my brass seam ripper, which is my favorite, and so I kind of enjoy ripping seams when I do sewing. This is kind of the same thing. It's like a nice little box that makes you want to go into the kitchen and refinish your cutting boards and your spoons, and you want to keep it on your bench when you are woodworking, so you always have access to, lubricating your metal, your saw blades, all of that. Or, another reason when mineral polish is really good is when you're doing jigs or something, you want something to glide on the table saw or whatever. But there's something, I don't know. I love the idea of having a little beautiful box with wax polish. And obviously, the wax polish is made with all natural stuff, just beeswax and oil, like all my polish always is. Obviously, you can use gloves, but if you don't, you can just kind of, put it in your hands. Your hands are dry. So anyway, let me know if you have any thoughts in the comments below, if you have any questions about these wax pots. I think I have about 20 or so made, a couple of each kind of wood. So link in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon.